Okay, thank you again for doing this today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So first, before we get started, can you tell me a little bit about, are you the teacher or what are we doing here?
No, so good question. So, my title is Director of Secondary Education. So I work at the district office. Um, Really, what's going on is we're doing some different financial literacy work already with seniors in high school. And some of our teachers ran into some of your people at a conference. I think it was this past summer, and they specifically asked me to look into your program
Okay, perfect. So,
in order to compare it to what we're already doing.
all right, great. So can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing so I can kind of point out differences if I'm aware of them, or you want to keep that kind of to yourself?
Sure. No, it's fine. So we're actually partnering with a nonprofit right now, and that nonprofit comes in once a week and does in-person lessons with seniors. And so they start a little bit conceptually, kind of with the idea of just even going into microeconomics and principles of delayed gratification. And then over the course of the year, they build in things like how to make a budget and how to invest and all those kinds of ideas.
Perfect. So I'm going to tell you about Personal Finance Lab. So Personal Finance Lab is it's an entirely online resource. We do stock market games, budgeting games, curriculum, all integrated together, and they play nicely with each other. We also do work with schools to
Okay.
set up lab spaces. I'll talk about that a bit at the end, but I think the most of what we're going to be interested in is the actual learning resources. So
Okay.
to get started, I'm going to log in with my teacher account just to give you a little preview of what it looks like. Basically, the way it works is a teacher creates a class, and a class can have the stock game, the budget game, both, neither, and the curriculum that they want to include. So to start out, I'm going to go up here and create my challenge or class. And are you able to see my screen all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. So I'll give it 1 second to load. So there's a lot of different settings the teacher can use to kind of make it their own. For pretty much everything, we give default settings that most classes use to make it easy for teachers to get started. We also do webinars with teachers to help them get started. We have teacher guides we send out that have lesson plans and stuff to them as well. But to get started here, I'll put my class name and a description, so when my students go in to register, they know they're in the right place.
Mhm. Okay.
Estimated participants doesn't mean anything, and some just settings on when the students can join. Like, do the students need to put a password in so that you know they're in the right class? What is the window they can register, time zone, that kind of stuff. Next up, the teacher would, if they're using the stock game portion, they choose the rules for their stock game. So the currency they're working with, the trading window, the how much cash the students get, all kinds of stuff like that. They can even do things like let the students see each other's trades or have them private. The teacher can choose to keep themselves in or out of the rankings, whatever they want to do.
Okay.
And then they can even get more granular about, if teachers are really focusing on investments, they can do things like forcing students to diversify their portfolios in certain ways, or turning on mutual funds and bonds, and even getting into currencies and stuff. So most schools don't use that kind of stuff, but we do work with some CT programs that have kind of finance disciplines that focus on it. And then even down here, there's a bunch of international exchanges, depending on what the teacher really wants to cover in their class. So
Okay.
a basic personal finance class would probably allow stocks, mutual funds, and bonds. They would require their students to take notes with every trade, so the students need to write why they're doing everything they're doing. And they'll probably just stick to the U.S. equity market. But like I said, it's super flexible. Once the teacher has the rules that they want to use for the stock game, which they can come back and they can change these at any time, which happens all the time, they will move on to their class budgeting game. So the budgeting game on our site gives the student a simulation where they take on the role of a college student with a part-time job. They need to manage their variable income, their variable expenses. They need to build up an emergency fund, and they also need to pay attention to actually building up their quality of life. So they can't just save all their money always and win the game. So it works kind of the same as a stock game. The teacher chooses the dates they want it to run. They choose how many virtual months of the game they want the students to complete. Each month takes probably about 20 minutes for the average student to finish.
Okay.
How much cash in the checking account and savings account do they want the students to start with, and some of the expenses the students are going to experience each month. So when the students sign in, and I'll just show you this, they're going to have some choices, but this is going to be the average that the students in the entire class will pay.
Okay.
And then how much do they earn for their hourly wage? During the game, a lot of random events pop up. I'm asking the students to make a decision. The teacher does have some control over what kinds of events are going to pop up, so they can tailor this for their class and what they're covering each week. And at the very bottom here, we kind of show the students a summary of what the game is going to look like for the average student. So if they make it so the student's always losing money, then they're going to make the game pretty hard, which is okay. The teacher can always come in here and give the students like a pay raise to make the game easier over time or harder if they want to, really put some stress on the budgets. But I'm going to stick with the defaults for now. Click Next. And the last step here is choosing the learning modules the teachers want to do. So typically a teacher would create what we call an assignment every week or so. And an assignment is a list of tasks they want their students to complete each week. These should line up with what the teacher is talking about in class to reinforce those same lessons. So the kinds of things we have are articles. So this one up here, reading what is a stock. This is an article between 1,000 and 2,000 words. They have images and infographics. We embed videos, all kinds of stuff. But the one thing they all have in common is they end with a pop quiz. They're between 3 and 5 questions long. The students need to take this quiz to get credit for having read the article. And the teacher can choose when they're setting up their class whether the student can retry that quiz for a higher score, or we just kind of take their first attempt. So it can be used as an assessment or just kind of a fun activity.
Can I ask what reading level those are written at? Are they written for high schoolers, or
They are.
what's the target?
The target audience is a high school freshman. They're depending on the actual article you pick out, they might be at a little bit lower, a little bit higher. Like this, investing fundamentals is perfectly fine at 8th grade, or even we have some sixth graders that use it. If you're getting younger than that, then we have some specific stuff for elementary schools. But then when you get into the rest of the materials, some of the stuff that's like in our business curriculum would really be for a higher level high school student. But generally speaking, any high school student should be fine with any of the curriculum in here.
Okay, fair enough.
So for a personal finance class in particular, the interesting things to look at, this investing fundamentals and intermediate investing tips, this is the stuff that the teachers who use the stock game, we recommend to cover first. Even if they don't talk about it in class first, just so the student knows what they're doing in the stock game. So it's really just kind of a tutorial of how do they do the basics in the game. Beyond that, the teacher would go down here into the bucket that they're most interested in this case probably personal finance, and they would check off the stuff that is relevant to what they're talking about in class each week. So spending and saving plans, budgeting, debit cards, credit reports, insurance, filing taxes. There's about 70 different activities just for personal finance. We also have a library of economics lessons. So depending on the district, I know a lot of schools merge their personal finance and economics courses. So there's a lot of economic stuff in here too. And then beyond that, we have some career prep stuff. So this is specifically talking about how to build a resume, how to do job interviews. And we even have one talking about certifications if they're interested to learn more about finance, because they might be doing the stock game. The business curriculum I briefly mentioned, accounting, management, marketing stuff. Investing 101 is a little bit different. Instead of being one article with one quiz, it is a chapter of, on average, 10 small topics between 250 and 500 words that ends with a chapter exam. So
wow, okay.
The teachers who use Investing 101 usually don't have it as part of the class the students are doing while they're sitting there. They just kind of have as an extra thing students can do if they finish early, if they want to do it as homework to learn a little bit more about the stock market investing. And then we have specific stuff the teachers want the students to do. So in the stock game, making trades in their portfolio. Just some basic stuff to make sure they're interacting with the game regularly. In the budgeting game, stuff like complete a certain number of months of the budgeting game, transfer some money to their savings account a certain number of times, things like that. The section we call mathematics is really more using spreadsheets. So understanding how to use some basic Excel functions, taking some of that data they generated in their stock and budgeting game accounts, and taking that into Excel, making charts and graphs and things like that. And the last one here is called an assessment. The assessment will look at all of the other stuff I asked my students to do this week. It's going to grab 2 questions from each of these quizzes and give them a final assessment on all of it. So if I grab these 10 topics up here, my assessment will have 20 questions, 2 questions from each of these quizzes, and the students would need to take that to get credit. And they won't have the articles in front of them then, it's just what do they remember.
So this is really built for a class on personal finance then. That's really what this is aimed towards. Am I correct on that?
A class in personal finance is going to be able to use everything, but I would say a dedicated class on personal finance would probably only be between half and 2/3 of the total number of users we have. Most classes will use a couple parts at a time. They won't use everything.
Got it.
So in either case, I have this set up. So as a teacher, now I'm pretty much done. That's all I need to do. Teachers have a ton of reports, but they don't need to get in. I don't need to get into those quite yet. From a student's perspective, they can get their students in the class one of 2 ways. They can give them this link, in which case their student would need to create a username and password and log in. Or the teacher can say, I don't want my students to enter any personal information. I'm just going to go to what's called the registration file, and I need 10 accounts. And then our system will say, okay, that's fine. Here's your 10 username and passwords. You can hand them out to your students.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then,
and in that way, you don't collect any personal information from the kids at all.
Correct. And then the teacher, when they come back to the registration file later, they can see all of those students. They can edit the usernames if they want to. If the students want to pick their own username or a team name, they can reset their passwords if they need to, all kinds of other stuff like that. So they can do it both ways. The students generally prefer to choose their username, but a lot of schools really don't want any personal information whatsoever, so we make sure that is within the realm of possibilities. So I'm a student. I log in for the first time. I'm taken to what's called the stock game dashboard. We're working on building kind of a merge dashboard, but right now they start with the stock game by default. I don't have anything in my portfolio, so it's just listing some of the most commonly traded stocks on the system. On the right side of the page here, this is the assignment that my teacher set up for me. So here's all the stuff I'm expected to do. Here's the countdown for until when it's due. If I want to make a trade, I can just click trade, which will take me straight to the trading page, or I can click make a trade in the main menu to get to any of the trading pits. Once they put in a symbol, we give the students a lot of information on what to do. So even if they don't know the ticker symbol, they can type the company name, and we'll give them the symbols that match. There we go. They can preview the order. They have this chart isn't working right now because our developers are changing it right now, but there's a simple chart that's color-coded red and green, and there's an advanced chart that would show the stock's price changing over time. On here they have the last price of the stock, how it's changed for the day. This is going to be red if the stock is losing money today, and green if the stock is making money. Down here we have who is this company, what did they do, what news stories are talking about this company right now, what's Wall Street saying about this company, how has its price moved over time. That one's a little slow apparently. Financial statements is the income, balance sheet, cash flow statement over time. This is used a lot more in business classes. And detailed quote, which has PE ratios and all kinds of other stuff. So there's quite a lot of information available in here. There's even more available in our research center. There's like stock screeners and stuff, but I don't think we need to get too deep into that right now.
It's fascinating. That's all right there.
Yeah. So the student previews their order, which updates it with the commission rate the teacher set, and the student is asked to make a note. So why are they making this trade? The teachers and students can review these notes later, but the students cannot change them, so they can't come back and change their rationale. press confirm, and it's instant. So the stock will instantly appear in the student's portfolio. So the students can see with their holdings be either what we call the list view, which is kind of boring, but it does have a little bit more information like the 52-week highs and lows, stuff like that. Or they can use the chart views, which shows the stock's price moving over time, 30-day, 1 year, or just the 1 day. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Both the students and teachers can export anything to Google Sheets or Excel at any time. All of the transaction history reports, the historical portfolio values, and everything in between. So on the budget game side, you see this big button to switch to budget game. If the teacher is not using the stock game, the students will start at the budget game by default. And you can see the bar here changes to all my stats for the budgeting game. So my net worth, the cash my teacher gave me to start with, my credit card is a $2,500 limit to start out with. We have a how to play tutorial, so students using it for the first time is probably going to refer to this, but I'll do a quick walkthrough of what it looks like. The game starts out asking the students some of the basic stuff about where they want to live. So this center choice here is always what the teacher set as the rule, but then they can choose ones a little bit cheaper or a little bit more expensive. So I'm going to go expensive on this one. Choosing the expensive ones is going to really improve their quality of life, which is pretty important when they come into their actual game score and how we do the rankings and things. So I'll be medium for this one. That's not good.
It's thinking about it.
It is thinking about it. Okay, and then I'll have a cheap grocery plan. So the students play the game by rolling the dice, which moves them forward through the calendar. So on the calendar, you can see a bunch of stuff is going on here. These green question marks is like a little mini lesson where we talk a little bit about how the students, I just refreshed the page, so now it's giving my options again. So so let me roll the dice forward so you can see it actually. So every Saturday, the student chooses how to spend their weekend. They can work extra hours to earn more money. They can spend time with friends and all the other stuff. If they focus too much on one thing every weekend, then they're going to start getting penalized for the other ones. So for example, if I never study, I'm going to start failing my exams and I have to pay for a private tutor. Or if I never do my household chores, then my landlord's going to do an inspection and give me a huge fine.
Got it.
So for now, I'm just going to socialize, spend some time with my friends. We went to go see a band. That's fine. So this one is my rent bill. This one comes the second of every month. I can choose to pay it with my debit card or credit card, which is all fine. And then I'm getting this card here. This is one of those green icons. So this is a little mini lesson talking about the difference between a debit and credit card. Because every transaction a student does is that using the debit card or credit card. So we give them a little mini lesson talking about what the difference between them is and when's the best case to use one or the other. So to progress, they need to enter, we ask what is the interest rate on their credit card. I know it is 20% and it's in that lesson, so I'll continue. And now I need to actually build my budget for the month. So first it's going to show me, here's the hours I'm being given at work. This is the income that I'm expected. This month I'm lucky, they're all the same number, making the math easy, but usually they're not. We give them a random number of hours between 5 and 30 hours each week. So that's to help them understand how to manage that variable income. So I have 10, 18 income. We show they work at a cafe as their job, so they're going to earn some tips. And then we also would take out the income tax. Next up, they need to see their expenses they're going to have for the month. So this is all the stuff that they're expected to spend, their main bills coming up. And the one thing that we want them to do here is just give a rough estimate of what they think they're going to have to spend for their variable expenses. So the random events that happen to them. For the first month, they'll never get this question. I mean, we don't have a right or wrong here, but their answer is always going to be a little bit off. But then for the next months moving forward, we give them how much they spent last month to use as a guide.
Oh.
So now I have my income and expenses, and now the main part is I need to figure out how much I can save this month. So it looks like I have an expected shortfall of $307. So I'm going to have to do something with my budget because I really want to be able to save some money. A big component of this game score here is how well the students are able to transfer money into their savings account each month. So we want them to save, and we say it in a few places, 10% of their total income. So regardless of what their expected surplus or shortfall is, we want them to save. This guy would be $98. So that goes up, saying is a good position. The difficulty, we're changing this today, but because I have an expected shortfall, this is way above that. This is going to be a very hard target to hit.
Right.
So now I start my month, and at the end of every dice roll, I'm getting these choices of how I'm going to be spending my money throughout the month. Sometimes the students just have to buy it. It's a decision we impose on them, and they just choose how they're paying for it. Other times they're going to have a choice that asks them, do they want to do one thing or another? Those choices do have consequences. They impact the next events that come up in the game. Let me at least get through the first week here so I can show you what the paycheck looks like. Here we go. So now I got my paycheck. I have my base wage that I earned. I have the tips that I earned at my job. Bonus income. If I choose to work extra hours during the weekend, I can get some bonus income. Game income is sometimes some of those random events in the game will actually give the students money. They're very rare, but it does happen. Everything adds up, and they see how their taxes are taken out and their net pay.
That's good.
So the students are expected to be transferring money to their savings account regularly. We give them bonus points if they build up to a $500 emergency fund and a $1,000 emergency fund. So if I deposit $200 right here, you can see I just got a huge boost in my game score because I got my emergency fund halfway filled. The other component of the game score here is the credit score. So students improve their credit score by making sure they at least use their credit card and pay off their credit card bill on time. So that just increased that by a bit and increased this by a bunch. And the quality of life comes down to what they chose for those expenses, like their diet, their rent and stuff. But also a lot of the choices they make throughout the game will impact their quality of life. So they'll be able to choose between a luxury or a necessity and things like that.
Nice.
And
I can see how that would be very engaging for students.
So that's the basics how the budget game works. And that's the majority of it.
You said there's lessons that go along with that too, right? Just like there was for the investment game?
Yes. So the right side of the page here should have that assignments pop-up come up. I'm actually on the testing version of our site right now because these green cards are new this week. I just want to make sure I included those.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have the assignments part here, but yeah, when the students are using the game, they're going to see the stuff they're expected to complete. So it doesn't matter if the teacher is using a stock game or the budget game, they have access to all of those lessons.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you showing me this. Can we talk about pricing a little bit too?
Sure. So the standard pricing is $10 per student if you're using the stock game or the budget game. It's $15 per student if you're using both. Depending on the number of students in the school or the district, there are discounts to that. So a school with 250 students, I think it's a school with 250 students is $2,000 for one or the other, or $3,000 for both. So then we're starting to get into discounts. If there's 1,000 students, it goes down to $6 per student for both.
Okay. You said that's at 1,000 students?
Yeah, that's our larger site license is up to 1,000 students, and that's $4,000 for one or the other, or $6,000 for everything combined.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, like I say, I appreciate all this. Our teachers were very impressed when they saw it and saw this as something that was very engaging for students. So I think my next steps, just so you know, are to go back and talk to the school leaders, some of the principals, and go back to some of those teachers. Are you the best person to continue to follow up with? Does that work?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I have my colleague Nicole. She was also be good for it, and if I get any follow ups from you, I'll probably loop her into it so she's kind of aware. But both of us work together
Okay.
on it.
Okay. Well, that's great. Is there anything I'm not asking about that I should be asking about that I should know moving forward?
The biggest thing for engagement is the rankings pages. So I didn't really go through those, but there's
Okay.
rankings pages for both the stock game and the budget game. Those are a big deal for students. We also do
Uh,
um, actual like labs where schools would set up a lab space and they can broadcast financial data. They can broadcast their class rankings and stuff to like LCD screens. So
oh wow.
that might be. It's if you wanted these, it's I think $360 per year for up to 3 screens. That's just for the data license, not the hardware. But
Okay.
all of that is also within the realm of possibilities. I think about a third of the schools we work with use screens in some way. But yeah,
Okay.
that's all the big stuff. There's a ton of teacher reports and stuff too. But beyond that, that's kind of the how the student interacts with the platform.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Where are you all working out of? Where do you center yourselves out of?
So I am in Chicago. We have a salesperson in Huntington Beach, California. We have the president of the company is actually in South Carolina, and our main support office is in Montreal.
Oh wow. Okay. Very cool. So you guys are all over the place.
One
Fair
or two
enough.
people in a lot of places.
Yeah. um, all right. Well, like I say, thank you. I appreciate it. Let me do a little communicating around here, and we'll be in touch again.
All right,
Certainly.
sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.